The opinions expressed on this program are those of the host and do not express the views of WVBF ownership or Hometown Talk Radio. Content aired on all programs are those of the host and their guests. He was born Anthony W. Lopes in March of 1946. A lifelong Tongtonian, he has always been simply known as Tony, and he loves to talk. He talks about anything, anytime, and almost anywhere. Now's a good time because it's time for Coffee with Tony. Heard only on AM 1530 and FM 99.7. Just call 508-822-1106. Let's get started. Brew the coffee and start the conversation. Dial 508-822-1106 right now. And good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second hour of Coffee with Tony. It is 8 minutes after the hour of 10 o'clock. It is 72 degrees outside of our Taunton Federal Credit Union studios here at 14 Church Green. And we're in for a treat in this second half as we welcome in, see if I can do this right. Is that green that you're on?
This is, I can't even see it. It's not...
It's got to be. Let's try this and see how that sounds.
1, 2. Yeah, there we go.
There
That's
we go.
It.
So I got the first track, too.
Absolutely.
So we welcome Jimmy Larkin, who for 40-plus years was the host of Sounds of the Emerald Isle here on WVBF and BET in Brockton. And had a wonderful show and a wonderful following for many, many years. And took some time to join us today as he enjoys his retirement. And we're going to go back, and part of his show was not just music.
No, not at all.
And we're going to stay away from the music end because you get into things with ASCAP and so on and so forth. But they can't stop us from laughing.
That's for sure.
And we can have some fun with that. And but Jimmy, for people who maybe don't know, when you started over at BET, how did you wind up? And I know I've asked you this question before, but how did you start to do a radio show? Who?
Well, actually, it was kind of by accident because it actually started in 1971.
Yeah.
And what I was doing, I had a guy in Connecticut that was a booking agent, and he was booking my band for singing jobs.
Okay.
And he approached me, and he says, "You don't have Irish records, do you?" I said, "All you want." He says, "Would you be interested in doing a special radio show?" I said, "Sure. What is it?" So what his idea was is for me to go into a recording studio with all this Irish music, record a couple of hours of Irish music, and he would sell it to radio stations for St. Patrick's Day.
Okay.
So this went on for several years, but one of the stations wanted at least 6 hours, and doing that was very, very tough.
Sure.
Especially when you're doing all this other stuff. And so that went on for several years, and then all of a sudden everybody kept saying in these places in Brockton, "Why doesn't Brockton have an Irish show?" And I said, "Well, what's the best station in Brockton?" They said WBET. So I called the station, met with the manager, and he said, "When do you want to start?"
Okay.
And that was 41. It was 41 and a half years it lasted. Sounds of the Emerald Isle.
Sounds of that. How did you wind up? Was there any? I only say this because did you have any other ideas as far as other names other than Sounds of the Emerald Isle, or was that just the one thing that came to your mind and that's what you picked for the name of the show?
Actually, I was trying to think of a name for the show, and one night I was looking through these records and I saw this record called Songs of the Emerald Isle.
Okay.
And I thought, I like that title,
yeah.
So I picked Sounds of the Emerald Isle, and that was it.
Yeah, I say that because when I did the book that I published about 2 or 3 years ago, I actually had 4 or 5 guys, friends of mine. We all sat down and said, "Look, the text of the book is done. It's going to go to doc check and review, but I got to have a title.
Right.
And so we says, well, what are you thinking? So every person at the table, we took 5 minutes, we drank a beer, took 5 minutes, and then they all came up with a title. And then we wound up with the choice of, 35 years of talk radio.
Right.
That kind of thing. We're going to take a quick phone call. You're next on Coffee with Tony. Good morning.
Good morning. I don't usually call into radio stations, but you kind of got me riled up this morning. The media has been fairly biased regarding most of the reporting that's been done. Aren't you giving the Democrats an extra leg up by giving them an extra hour on the air as opposed to the Independent and the Republican?
Well, only because that's going to be the vote in January. But we will match anything that we give to the Democrats, hour for hour, in August and September.
I'm saying that the Democrats get more press and more stuff is put out about the Democrats and more time is given to the Democrats than there are to the Republicans and the Independents.
Well, not on this station. It won't happen. It's going to be complete. So every single hour is marked in the book. Every single hour, every single minute that one of them is on will be given in equal time to the Independent and to the Republican, if they so choose to use it. When we did the first round of was just a general introduction of the 4 candidates, we gave them each one a slot. They agreed to the time, and guess what? Only 3 out of the 4 showed up. The other one decided, and I got to say this honestly, she had a legitimate excuse. It turned out that it was too close to her wedding, and she couldn't make it. But she was offered the exact same time as everyone else. And that's the same thing that will happen, even though we're going to feature the Democrats a little bit before the primary, we will then feature the Independent and the Republican right after the primary to balance it. That's what we're going to do here. And it will be 100% totally fair and equal. No exception. Thanks for your call. All right, so answer that question. Anyway, let's get into some Irish comedy. Where do you want to start?
Well, we have a guy, and his name was Al Banham. And Al was a great guy. Saw him several times, and maybe we'll play a little of his comedy.
Okay. Do I have to do anything over here?
Stories in Ireland. Irish stories are renowned the world over. And when we tell Irish stories, we always say it happened in a very remote part of the country. Yeah. We never say exactly where it happened, just in case anybody happened to come from there, This is a little story about a very remote part of the country. Very small, remote part of the country. It was so small it only had one priest, Father Murphy, and he was very strict. He only said one mass every Sunday, and if you didn't get that, you were in trouble. And everybody used to be there Sunday morning, 10 o'clock. And this went on for years, until eventually, one Sunday morning, everybody was there, but no Father Murphy. So they sent John Joe. Now, John Joe was the central character in this story. He was the sacristan and the gatekeeper, and he minded the lawn, and he did everything. He was the general handyman. Sent him up to find out what happened to Father Murphy. So John Joe ran a mile up the road. Then he had to run a half mile back because Father Murphy only lived half a mile, you see. So he knocked on the door. No answer. Pushed it in, went in. There's poor Father Murphy stretched out in the bed. He said, "Father, what are we going to do?" He said, "They're all down there waiting for you." Well, he said, "John Joe, you'll have to go back and tell them that I'm not able to get up. My back is gone, I have the flu, the whole lot," he said. "Go back and tell them if they don't get mass today, it's not a sin. And while you're down there, I want you to read out a few notices for the week." He said, "Tell them that next Friday is the first Friday. Tell them there's a collection for our Holy Father the Pope next Sunday. Thursday is the feast of St. Peter and Paul. Wednesday, John Clancy and Mary McCool are getting married. And if anybody knows any reason why they shouldn't, they'll have to let us know. And one other thing, there was a parcel found, and whoever owns it can claim it in the sacristy." He said, "Well, I'll write that down for you." He said, "Oh, no, Father, I'll remember it." He couldn't wait to get back, He ran all the way back, a lather of sweat, up onto the pulpit. "Father Murphy is sick, but that's not a sin. Next Thursday is the first Friday. The Holy Father the Pope will be here next week to take up a collection. Wednesday is the feast of John Clancy and Mary McCool. Thursday, Peter and Paul is getting married. And if anybody knows any reason why they shouldn't, they'll find the answer wrapped up in the parcel in the sacristy.
That's Al Banham, and Al just passed away this past year. He's quite an entertainer, though.
It is absolutely. I could never repeat that joke because it is so. I mean, how much work went into memorizing not the first part of the story,
right.
The sequence of the
exactly.
second.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It takes quite a talent to do that.
Yeah, absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what do we got next?
Well, next we have a guy by the name of Jimmy Kennedy. Jimmy's still entertaining as far as I know. And very, very talented guy. He's been in Brockton several times with Patty Noonan and his band. And this is Jimmy.
Nick went down last week to the barber's to get his hair cut. And there's a big sign outside the barber shop saying, "Haircut while you wait." Barber says to him, "You know, Mick, you're going bald." Mick says, "Well, hurry up then." He says to the barber, "Have you got a deodorant?" Barber says, "Bald type." He says, "No, I want it for under my arms." Mick got a letter from the taxman. Big red writing on the envelope, "Final notice." Mick says, "Thank God that's the last I'll hear of that." The wife was fed up with him anyway. I think she was trying to get rid of him. She says he's a workaholic. Just mention work and he gets drunk. She says he's the laziest man in the world. He was out of work for 3 years with a broken lunchbox. Poor old mother-in-law there, she's standing in the doctor's room. 86 years of age she is. She has pains everywhere. The quiet young doctor, he says to her, "Take your clothes off." She says, "You first." Nick walked into the local bank the other morning. He says, "Could I speak to Mr. O'Reilly, please?" The cashier says, "I'm very sorry, but Mr. O'Reilly died of the weekend." He says, "I'm very sorry about that." He came back the following morning and said, "I'd like to speak with Mr. O'Reilly." Bank manager says, "Look, I told you. Mr. O'Reilly died at the weekend." He says, "Oh yes, sorry." And away he went. Didn't he come back again the next day? He says, "Can I speak to Mr. O'Reilly, please?" Your man says, "I told you yesterday and Monday that Mr. O'Reilly died at the weekend." Nick says, "Yes, I know, but I'd like to hear it." You're all laughing out there. Are you all married, or are some of you happy? No, I'm very happy tonight. I'm here and she's at home. Do you know that marriage is made up of 3 rings? The engagement ring, the wedding ring, and suffering. This little Dublin fella went on Mastermind. The question master says, "Name?" He says, "Michael Patrick O'Reilly." "Hyphenated?" "Oh yes, when I was 7. "I see you were born in Dublin. Have you lived in Dublin all your life?" He says, "No, not yet." "What is your specialist subject?" he says. "Polish popes of the 20th century, says Patrick. Your man said, "But there's only one." He says, "I know, but I know a lot about him." "Well, here's your starting question," he says. "What's written on the bottom of an Irish milk bottle?" He says, "Open the other end."
He was in.
And that was Jimmy Kennedy here in WVBF.
The one about the 3 rings.
Yeah.
Absolutely floored me. Listen, Jim, we're going to take just a little tiny break. We want to tell everybody, as I do every week, just about this time, that the second hour of Coffee with Tony is brought to you by our good friends at Joe's Diner. And as we say every week, nothing could be finer than to eat at Joe's Diner. We're going to be back with a little bit more Irish comedy from Jim Larkin, host of the Sounds of the Emerald Isle, for 41 and a half years between WVET and WVBF. But we'll be back with more, and I have a little story that I want to tell him. I don't know if I can pull this off when I tell him the story or not, but we'll try on the other side right after we hear these important messages.
Hey, restaurants, when it comes to great food and in-house operations, you got it down to a science. But when it comes to online marketing, ordering, and delivery, Devour Now has got you covered. Devour Now has 0% commission, no setup costs, and the delivery solution you've been hoping for. Go to GetDevourNow.com to request a demo and to get started today. That's GetDevourNow.com. Commission-free online marketing, ordering, and delivery.
Taunton Federal Credit Union's newest full-service location at 403 Winthrop Street in Taunton is now open. This is TFCU's fourth location, which includes its main office at 14 Church Green in Taunton and branches in Middleborough and New Bedford. Taunton Federal Credit Union's been serving the city of Taunton and surrounding communities since 1947 and is committed to offering an extensive range of products and services designed specifically with you in mind. Membership in the Taunton Federal Credit Union is now available to anyone who lives, works, worships, or attends school in Bristol County, Plymouth County, and Barnstable County in Massachusetts, Bristol, Kent, Newport, and Providence counties in Rhode Island, and the Rhode Island communities of Charlestown, Exeter, Hopkinton, Narragansett, New Shoreham, North Kingstown, Richmond, and South Kingstown. They want to make your banking experience as easy as possible by giving you convenient access to manage your accounts on the go, all the while providing you with the latest and greatest in banking technology. Stop in today and see what the Taunton Federal Credit Union can offer you.
Right, one of these times. Anyway, back with Jimmy Larkin as we talk a little bit about Irish comedy. Jimmy, I wanted to ask you a question. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm of Portuguese heritage, mm-hmm. so I don't have a background. I know a little bit about the Portuguese language and about mm-hmm. the slangs they use and this and that, but there is a Gaelic language, right, as well, right?
Right, yes, there is.
And if you were thinking it's not really close to English, is that a fair way of saying it?
No, exactly, not close at all.
Yeah, so, because that was the story that I was going to tell you, was about this guy who came as an immigrant from Ireland who spoke only Gaelic. Mm-hmm. And he was having a terrible time mm-hmm. getting around and getting things done. But he had, his godfather was here ahead of time mm-hmm. and was kind of like his sponsor and everything else. So we went to see Manuel, and he said, listen, he says, I need a job. Mm-hmm. And Manny says, I'll take care of it. I'll get you. I know somebody who needs a construction worker. Mm-hmm. Get you a job. So 2 days later, he sees this guy's name was Michael. He says, yeah. He says, thank you so much. I got the job. It's working out good. I'm working hard, and the money's going to be good and everything else. He says, but I got another problem, Manuel. He says, what's that? He says, well, they have a lunch cart that comes, and I can't order anything because I don't know how to speak in English. All mm-hmm. I can speak is in Gaelic. And he says, well, says, we'll work on that. Mm-hmm. He says, so just repeat after me, apple pie and coffee. So Michael practiced apple pie and coffee, apple pie and coffee, mm-hmm. apple pie and coffee, apple pie and coffee. The next day he gets in line at the lunch cart, mm-hmm. and sure enough, he gets apple pie and coffee. So this goes on for a week or so. He comes back, he sees Manuel, and he says, hey, how's the job going? Mm-hmm. Oh, good. How's the lunch doing? The apple pie and coffee? Oh, good. He says, but you know what? I'm having apple pie and coffee every day. So is there anything else I could get from the lunch cart? I got to have something different. So man says, oh, no problem. Ham and cheese sandwich. So Michael practices ham and cheese sandwich, ham and cheese sandwich, ham and cheese sandwich. The next day, he gets in line at the coffee cart. Okay, goes up to the line and says to the guy, starts to pick out the apple pie. He says, no, ham and cheese sandwich. The lunch cart guy turns to him and says, you want white or rye? And he says, apple pie and coffee.
You know, funny about the Gaelic is I remember one time, and this is before I was actually on WBET, one of the guys who was on in the morning got a phone call from one of the people on St. Patrick's Day. And I just happened to have it on, and they told him, if you want to wish the Irish people a happy day today for St. Patrick's Day, say Pogue Mahone to all you Irish people. So this guy's on the air telling all the Irish people, Pogue Mahone. What he was telling them is kiss my ass.
Okay, well, the R-rated show for today, that's okay too. Who do we have next?
We have a guy by the name of Joe Cuddy. Joe just passed away a couple of years ago. Very, very talented guy. I had him on the show many times, and he was always a pleasure to have on.
Okay.
He was an innocent poor fella, Murphy. He came from a little village, in the west of Ireland, a little remote village. Small little place. You know the type of village I'm talking about now. 6 houses, 8 bars, and a cathedral. And all the bars were doing extremely well, thank you. No, it was only a small place. The local fire brigade was a 10-year-old bedwetter. But he was never even on an airplane, He called up Shannon Airport one day. He said, Miss, how long would it take one of those jumbo jets to fly from Shannon Airport to John F. Kennedy Airport in the United States? She said, just a minute. He says, thank you very much. When he was checking in, the girl said, where would you like to sit? He said, inside. Beside the black box. Why don't they make the whole plane out of the stuff they make the black box out of? She said, are you nervous? Of course I'm nervous. The first word I saw when I came in here was terminal. He was terrified. The tears were running down his legs. And the stewardess... No, he was upset. And the stewardess noticed it. She said, Mr. Murphy, you're nervous. Compliments of Aer Lingus. Would you like a glass of whiskey? Oh, I'd love a glass of whiskey. So she gave him the glass of whiskey. And 10 minutes later, just when she was walking away, he said, by the way, miss, what would I do if I wanted another one? She said, there's no problem, sir. Just press the little button over her head. Over your head there, just press that. We take care of everything. But sometime later, she looked down to check on Murphy. There he was with the glass. Mind you, he did drink an awful lot, unlike most Irishmen. What's the comparison between Irishmen and bagpipes? You get no noise out of either of them until they're full. Murphy drank it. He did. He drank too much. He read that much about the evils of drink, he decided to give up reading. He donated a pint of blood last week and there was a slice of lemon in it. Drastic things. Sure, he got his toes amputated so he could stand closer to the bar. Well, here in Ireland, folks, like most countries now, we have very strict drink driving laws, and I agree with that. I think it's fair and right. And we have here on-the-spot breathalyzer tests when you're in charge of a motorized vehicle. And in that situation, we're allowed something like 80 milliliters of alcohol in our blood. Now, that's not very much, I assure you. I often swallowed more washing my teeth. But a policeman stopped Murphy's car at 1 o'clock in the morning. He said, where are you coming from? Me, I'm coming from the pub. Have you alcohol taken? I had 8 whiskeys, 4 beers, and a half giraffe of red wine. He said, I'll have to breathalyze you. He said, why, do you not believe me? He gave him the breathalyzer. He said, blow into that. He said, what is it? He said, it's a bag that tells you if you've been drinking. Oh, I have one of those at home.
And that's Joe Cuddy. Great Joe.
He has one of those at home. Okay. I mean, this is so... You know what I love about Irish comedy? Any kind of comedy, done right.
Right.
Irish comedy is good comedy. Mm-hmm. There is comedy out there today that's not good comedy.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, and I was really surprised that last week I watched one of the afternoon talk shows. It's called not The View. The View is the one I don't like. It's The Talk in the afternoon at 2 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And that's the one Jerry O'Donnell is on and so on. And they had a comedian on as a guest. And he was I think they said he was 59 years old. And he did, you know, just like kind of like common sense type of humor. Mm-hmm. He was absolutely hilarious.
Really?
Not even anything that could be even construed as R-rated in the thing. It really burns me up to see comedians who are not really performing; they're acting out.
Right.
By doing stuff like this. Oh, yeah. I don't remember if you remember, because she's gone kind of like, I don't think she's doing much anymore. She's been kind of written out of the business because of her, basically because of her profanity and some of the things that she did. But there was this female comic that she said, she did the things she said she was on the B list. I don't know if you remember that or not, but she says, well, I never can get the top billing and this and that. And she became quite popular. She started out by, all of her stuff was really pretty good, a little satirical. She made poke fun and political humor and so on, but it was okay. Yeah. And as soon as she started to get a couple of bigger gigs and bigger things, she turned her material into really kind of gross stuff. Yeah. And then she started picking on religions. And she went from a B-list, A-list to the F-list. Yeah. And she got blackballed right out of Las Vegas. She was making money hand over fist in Vegas. Vegas pays very well. You get to perform in Vegas, you make money.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, I always remember they talk about it was years ago. Was it Wayne Newton that signed a huge deal for like 10 or 12 years to perform for 10 or 12 years at one Las Vegas hotel, and they said, "Oh man, what a bunch of money compared to what they pay now." They paid him for 10 years what some people are getting now for 6 months.
That's incredible. I
mean, that's how much it was a great. It wound up being a great deal for the hotel. I guess that's the best way of putting it. You know. Wow. So, hey, Jimmy, I wanted to ask you. Ireland now. Do you ever watch it, or have you ever seen any of the Star Wars movies?
No.
No. Okay.
I think so.
All right. So anyway, they did 3 at the beginning. 4 when it was episodes 4, 5, and 6. Then they went back and they did episodes 1, 2, and 3. George Lucas didn't have any money, so he had these 9 stories all written, but he had to make the first one a hit, or he was done. And then he gambled, and he wound up a multi-billionaire, millionaire, billionaire. Well, he sold the Star Wars product eventually to Disney for $4 billion. So, but anyway, 4, 5, and 6, 1, 2, and 3, and then they went back and did 7, 8, and 9. And in 7, the end of 7, the star of Star Wars, one of the main characters, Luke, had run away and was hiding on an island. So it was supposed to be the home island of the Jedi and all this other crap. But the real story is they filmed that on 3 islands off the coast of Ireland.
Oh, really?
Okay. So my next door neighbor who's been a neighbor of 40-odd years, goes to Ireland every year. Sometimes they go twice a year.
Wow.
And her and her husband took the excursion from the coast. The islands are about 3 miles out, and they're really like totally green. They look like green mountaintops. That's all was sticking out of the ocean. But anyway, they went to this, and she told I knew she was going to go. When they came back, I says, "How was it? How was the trip out to the island?" She says, "The worst experience of her life. She got so seasick. The seas were so rough that she was sick for 2 days after going out to the side." She said, "The islands were beautiful. It was wonderful, and we walked around and everything else. And when we finished, I didn't want to get back on the boat because I knew I was going to get seasick again." So, I throw that little story in. It's just amazing. So, look, why don't we do this? We gotta play 2 spots.
Okay.
And when we come back, it will be 20 of, and then we'll get into another segment of some Irish comedy. We got a couple more left that you got.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, so we'll be right back right after we do these 2 important announcements.
The Rags to Riches story has become a part of the American dream, and you can hear stories like these every day on the Success Journal. Hi, I'm your host, Chris Whitting, inviting you to join me for the behind-the-scenes stories of those who risked it all while reaching for the stars. Listen every weekday for the Success Journal.
The Success Journal. It comes your way at 7:50 a.m. Monday through Friday as part of WVBF's Morning Wake Up News. Nothing can be finer than to eat at Joe's Diner, open 7 a.m. daily till 2 p.m. Located at 51 Broadway in Taunton with plenty of free parking, and they have a brand new parking lot. Joe's features breakfast all day, lunch with all your favorite homemade dishes, American chop suey, meatloaf, chicken pot pie, shepherd's pie, turkey and pork dinners, and of course fish and chips on Fridays, along with many other seafood treats. Joe's Diner with the best coffee in Taunton. It's a wicked local favorite, voted best of the best by the Taunton Daily Gazette year after year. So anytime during the week, stop by Joe's Diner on Broadway in Taunton, where good friends meet, and the food and coffee's always good 7 days a week. For takeout, call 508-823-2193. That's 508-823-2193.
Hey, we're back with you on Coffee with Tony at just about 20 minutes before the hour of 11 o'clock. We're with Jim Larkin this morning doing a little Irish comedy. It's 73 degrees outside of our Taunton Federal Credit Union studios at 14 Church Green. And Jim, where do we go next? What's the next comedian on the hit parade for this morning?
Well, this fellow's name is Sean Connors. He started life as a policeman in Dublin, and he was a policeman for many years.
Okay.
And he started entertaining on the side, doing comedy, and he gave up his police job for the comedy.
Really?
Yes. So this is.
So he must be pretty good at it.
He is good at it. Very good.
All right.
My father used to buy all our clothes from the army and naval stores. Now, it wasn't bad, but it was very embarrassing going to school dressed as a Japanese admiral. And we used to get hand-me-down clothes off my father. That's true. You don't believe me. I got a pair of hand-me-down pants off my father that was so big I had to open a fly to blow my nose. It's true. I got a pair of jeans off my sister. The zip was in the side and the pocket was in the front. Nearly got arrested looking for change. Another time, I remember going to school one time dressed in the same dress as the teacher. I think he was more embarrassed than I was. I was standing in the bar earlier on, This guy minding his own business, another fellow walked in and hit him straight on the jaw. And the guy said, was that a joke or did you mean it? He said, I meant it. He said, that's all right. He says, I don't like jokes like that. I was out there last week in the bar before the show, and this guy said to me, he says, you're Sean Connors, the comedian. I said, yes. He says, you're a miserable-looking so-and-so for a comedian. I said, if you suffered with a headache, I says, I suffer with it. I said, you'd be miserable. Oh, he said, I'm very, very sorry. I didn't realize you had headaches. I do apologize. He says, but he says, I get them myself. It's migraine you probably had. But he says, what I do, he says, when I get it, I go home. He says, I give my wife a big loving kiss and the headaches go away. Very loving kiss for about 20 minutes. He says, you should try it. And I met him tonight. He says, hiya, Sean. He says, you're looking in good form. You don't get the headaches. I said, no. I said, I get them occasionally. I said, I tried your cure. It really works. And I must say, you got a gorgeous apartment as well. Mrs. O'Toole got 26 children. You see, she was a little bit deaf. Because when they go to bed, he said, will we go to sleep or what? And she said, what? And the doctor says, Mrs. O'Toole, if you have any more children, you'll die. But she says, I love my husband. What will we do? I says, the only thing you do is you sleep upstairs and he sleeps downstairs. So everything's going fine for about 6 months. Mr. O'Toole is sleeping in the settee and she's up in the big double bed. And he's after having a few drinks one night and he's very fed up and he can't sleep. He says, I'd love to go up and see Mrs. O'Toole. I'll take a chance. And he goes up and he opens the door on step in a pink transparent negligee. You know it was transparent because you could see her undershirt, you see. It was Mrs. O'Toole. He says, Mrs. O'Toole, what on earth are you doing? She says, I'm coming down to die. He said, it's a good job I was on my way up to kill you.
That's Sean Connors, Irish comedian.
Okay. I'm still laughing about the first or the second joke that he had.
Oh, I don't know how they come up with some of them. I really don't.
Yeah.
Must take them sometimes all night just to think up one-liners, you know.
Well, the talent, you know, is twofold. The presentation is, you can tell I could tell a joke and you could tell a joke. You could get a big laugh and I could get nothing, or vice versa, depending on just how you tell the joke. But the second half of the thing is writing the joke.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
You know, I always recall that I loved a guy I loved Bob Hope for his humanity. The things he did with the servicemen, the shows he did, and so on and so forth. And he used to write, at least in his early years, all of his material, all of his jokes. He wrote them and so on and so forth. The jokes were good. His presentation was awful because he would give a joke or say a joke, and he would sit there and wait until he got a laugh before he would say another word.
Yeah.
And people criticized him a lot for that.
Yeah.
In fact, back when we had our centennial here in Taunton, you know, I don't know, it was 200 years or whatever, something, he made we had a performance where he came in and he did like a 10 or 15 minute thing, and it was the exact standing with people, we were watching him and so on and so forth, and I says, look, he's going to tell a joke, wait till he finishes the joke. There's going to be a pause. And it's the same thing, and he waited until somebody, he got a few laughs or giggles, and if he didn't get much, he criticized the crowd, which that is part of, I guess, kind of the standard routine, you know, like you're a tough audience or you're this or that. Right. You might get a bigger laugh out of that than out of the joke itself.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So presentation is half of it, and writing is half of it. And some guys are great joke tellers, and some of them are terrible.
That's right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, as much as, like, I say that Bob Hope in his presentation was bad, but another guy who did the same thing but was very successful was Jack Benny.
Oh, yeah.
Jack Benny could tell a story, wait for the laugh, and then he'd give you the look. Yeah. The look, you know. I used to love that when Sunday nights we'd watch, his show used to be on after Ed Sullivan, you know, on Sunday nights. I'm really dating myself now. I'm going back there, but man, he could he could do it with the best of them. He could tell jokes with the best of them.
Right.
And he loved to have a guy standing off to the side that he could use as a butt boy for the joke, whether it was Rochester or he had an Irish singer that he used to pick on too, Dennis O'Day.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and he would use him. And poor Dennis at that time was probably, when he was doing the show, in his 20s.
Yeah.
And he was like a deer in headlights. He didn't know what was going on. I don't think it was much rehearsed. I think it was pretty much ad lib, and he didn't know what Jack Benny was going to say to him.
Right.
You know, except that, you know, one night, I guess, he said, he made a comment that Dennis O'Day was like 21 or 22 years old, and he says, well, I've only got 16 or 17 years on you, because he always referred to, he was 39 years old.
Right.
You know, all the time.
Oh, yeah, remember that.
Even when he was 59 or 60, he was still 39 years old.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
That's
crazy. All right, so it's about 14 minutes before the hour. We got maybe two more that we can do.
Absolutely. Let's not forget the king of Irish comedy, one of the best of all times.
Yeah.
A guest on my show for many, many years, Hal Roach.
Oh,
Hal was quite a guy, and people to this day still play Hal Roach. They buy his tapes, or CDs, whatever.
Yeah.
They're always listening to him. He's great.
Okay, let's do it.
Sunday I was down in Kilkenny doing a show, and now listen to this. I'm driving back at midnight, and I'm running short of petrol, and there's a man walking towards me, and I said, excuse me, are there any all-night 24-hour petrol stations in Kilkenny? He said, yes, sir, 4 of them. I said, could you direct me to one of them? He said, I could, but they'll be all closed now. We're the greatest. We really are. Even today now, just to digress from the Irish for a while, I was at a meeting today, did a, sort of press reception, you see, at the French embassy today. Funny men, these Frenchmen, aren't they? They really are. One of them kissed me on both cheeks. It was very embarrassing. I was tying my shoe at the time. Yes. Well, listen, the thing is, now listen to this. I live in a bungalow, and this fella lives in a bungalow beside me, exactly the same in every detail. And recently he wallpapered his front room, and I said, how many rolls of wallpaper did you use? He said 9, so I said, I'll do the same. So I got 9, finished mine, and I met him the next day. I said, you did say 9 rolls, didn't you? He said, yes. I said, well, I finished papering my front room, I said, and I discovered from the 9, I had 3 rolls of wallpaper left over. He said, God, that's funny, so did I. Stories for you now, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to go hysterical. You really are. Please God, one of you will go hysterical, and then I'll get you to mingle. However, yes, two cannibals in the jungle, and this missionary came by on a bicycle, and one cannibal said to the other, look at that, meals on wheels, meals on wheels. Well, please yourselves. Listen, I'm enjoying myself. That's the main thing. I mean, I'm sort of worried at the money I'm getting. Mr. God, I could have phoned this in. But listen, this fella went to the furrier, and he said to the assistant, I'd like to buy a muff to keep me hands warm. She said, of course. What fur? He said, I just told you to keep me hands. I don't know what to say, ladies and gentlemen. I'm quite overcome at that outburst. I really am. I love this kind of thing. I really do. And he said to the librarian, could you recommend a good book? She said, would you like something light? He said, it doesn't matter, I have the car outside. Now, a woman of 65 married a man of 80, and they spent their honeymoon trying to get out of the car. And, well, 80 for God's sake, come on. Twilight Zone. But the thing is, and the following year she went to the doctor, and the doctor confirmed the good news to her, you see. Yes. She said, you're out of your Chinese mind. I can't be. I'm 65 years old. He said, but you are. My God, she said, can I ring my husband and tell him? He said, yes. So she picked up the phone. She said, Paddy, I'm pregnant. And he said, who's speaking? It's not a sin to laugh at that now. Honestly, really isn't. No way.
Hal Roach. on WVBF.
He performed everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
He was a favorite, by the way, we're talking, we go back, a lot of the comedy variety shows that were on Jackie Gleason, for example, he the Show of Shows with Caesar and Imogen Coca. Yeah. He was a constant, he was extremely popular.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know, so, in fact, I remember one time he did a 7 or 8 minute thing on Jackie Gleason. And in those days, it was live television. It was a Saturday night live television. And they didn't have 25 cameras, and they had 2 or 3, but one of them pans, there's Jackie Gleason off to the side at the edge of the curtain, you know, off the edge of the stage. He's going to come on to do whatever they're going to do next, you know, and he's there, and he's adjusted his tie and uniform, and so on, because he was putting an apron on, because he was going to do the bartending scene, that he did, you know, Joe the bartender. And Hal Roach said something, some kind of a comment or something correct. He basically fell over laughing on the side, and they caught it on the camera. Yeah. It's incredible. And another one that he used to go on to was Milton Berle, the Texaco. What was it? The Texaco Fireside Hour. That was on Tuesday nights. Oh, yeah. So he made all of those, and he was, oh man, today he would be worth millions.
Oh, absolutely.
Millions.
Yeah. And the Tonight Show he was on.
Oh, yeah. With Johnny Carson.
Yeah.
Yeah. Incredible.
Yeah.
One of my favorite comedians. I still, with Johnny Carson, 2 things that I absolutely used to, if I knew he was going to do a Karnak, Karnak the Magnificent. Yeah. Okay. That would be one. And the other one was when he did Art Fern and the Tea Time movies. And he would come out, and it would be, he had this Carol Wayne, beautiful looking lady that would be like the hostess. She'd come out and she'd have a card and so on and so forth. Yeah. And he would do a comedy routine based on selling stuff in Los Angeles. And the commercial would go on for a minute or two. It was all comedy and stupid, and and he would open up the thing. He says, to get to this furniture store, you go down the Santa Monica Freeway to the I-10 to da-da-da-da-da, and then you take the fork in the road. And he'd open up the little thing that was on the card, and there's a big fork sticking out of the canvas of taking the fork in the road, you know, that kind of thing. But he was amazing. He was he was the best. Yeah. All right, we got one more to do. Let's get that done, and then we'll be right back. Yes. I can't talk to you right now, but call me back in 5 minutes when I'm in the news broadcast, okay? Bye.
Okay, this is a guy named Jimmy Joyce, and people will remember him, the Jimmy Joyce Singers, Jackie Gleason, the Smothers Brothers, all these shows, the Jimmy Joyce Singers. Jimmy was from Boston. He was a great friend of my father's. Started off as a voice teacher and did a comedy album.
The other day I was coming in on a jet, and I was sitting right next to a priest. We were 30,000 feet in the air, and the 2 left motors stopped, and I turned to the priest and I said, do something. He said, I'm sorry, I'm in sales, not management. Then the plane came in over the airport, and the other 2 motors stopped, so the stewardess ran up and down the aisle checking safety belts. And she looked at me and she said, Mr. Joyce, we're in a little trouble, say a little prayer. I said, well, right now I can't think of any. She said, well, do something religious. So I took up a collection. You know, the church I attend, they never take collections. Once a year they get 3 automobiles, and they put them up in front of the church, and they sell chances. And last year they raffled off a Cadillac, a Buick, and a Chevrolet. And 3 days after the raffle, the pastor was walking down the street, and he bumped into one of my relatives coming out of a thirst parlor. And the uncle looked at the good father, and he said, excuse me, could you tell me who won the automobiles, who won the Cadillac? And the priest said, why, the cardinal did. Wasn't he lucky? And the uncle said, well, who won the Buick? And the priest said, why, the Monsignor did. Wasn't he lucky? And the uncle said, well, tell me who won the Chevy. And the priest said, why, Father Murphy did. Wasn't he lucky? And at that moment, the uncle started to go back and get another drink. And the priest grabbed him. He said, by the way, how many tickets did you buy? And the uncle said, I didn't buy a damn one. Wasn't I lucky? And this church is right across the street from a synagogue, and the rabbi and the priest are very good friends. In fact, a few weeks ago, they each bought a new Oldsmobile, and they had the cars out on Route 1, and they were testing them out for speed and power. They were going along about 60 miles an hour, and all of a sudden the rabbi pulled in front of the priest. And there they were going down the highway, 60, 65, the rabbi in front, the priest in back, and all of a sudden an old lady started across the road. And the rabbi slammed the brakes on, and the priest couldn't stop, and he went right into the back of the rabbi's car, and there was a terrific crash. Both cars were demolished. And the two of them staggered out of the wreckage, and the priest got very upset. And he walked up to the rabbi, and he said, when you stop a car like that, why don't you give a signal? Put your hand out, put the brake on. You didn't do a thing. You stopped short with no signal. I went right in the back of your room with the two cars. Look at the mess we got here. And the rabbi said, don't get excited, Father. We got insurance. You're getting flustered. You're getting red in the face. You're going to have a heart attack. I got a bottle of brandy here. Better take a drink and calm down. So the priest took a drink. He said, what about the license, the registration? Let's get the papers out. We can't block the road all day. And the rabbi said, don't worry about the license. The registration I got will unblock the road. Take another drink. And the priest took another belt out of the jug. He said, well, call the insurance company, get a tow truck. And the rabbi said, don't worry about the insurance company. They'll send the tow truck. Take another drink. And the priest said, I just took two. When are you going to take one? The rabbi said, don't be silly. I'm waiting for the state police. And they came. 20 minutes later, the state police car pulled up, and a big Irish cop jumped out, and he looked at the damage, and he turned to the priest, and he said, how fast was this guy with the bottle going when he backed into you, Father?
That's Jimmy Joyce.
Okay. I have a couple of friends that are state policemen. I'll have to tell them that story. It's crazy.
Oh, absolutely.
That is so good. Jimmy, it's been fun. It's really
been. It has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and some great Irish comedy. And God willing, and the creek don't rise, maybe we'll do it toward the end of the fall or something, and we'll do it again. Yeah. You know, the end of September or in October, and to try to take a break before this election madness that we're going through. That's right. And that's why I really wanted to do this, because we have been going hot and heavy with all these other subjects and everything else. And maybe everybody can sit back and just have a good time and just laugh a little bit and have some fun and everything else. And I got to play a couple of spots, and hopefully I can plug this into the right thing that I'm supposed to plug it into. Yep. And then we'll be ready for USA Network News. So let me do that, and I want to thank you again for coming in, and we will talk soon. And the one and only Jimmy Larkin, the sounds of the Emerald Isle. Be right back.
Brush your teeth, wash your hands, eat healthy foods. There are healthy routines we start as children that continue throughout our lives. Staying up to date on vaccines is just one of them. Although vaccine recommendations may change as we age, the need for protection does not. So, keep washing your hands, brushing your teeth, eating healthy, and getting vaccinated, because your health depends on it. Learn more about Vaccines for Life at nfid.org.
My name is Teresa Barber. I was in the United States Navy, and I served overseas in the Middle East and Africa. Early on in my career, I had a commander that taught our suicide prevention training, and the very next day, he took his own life. 90% of suicide attempts involving a gun are fatal. My way of continuing my service is to help protect my community by being a responsible gun owner and by storing firearms safely. Store all your guns securely. Help stop suicide.
Brought to you by End Family Fire and the Ad Council.
Hey, and we got just about enough time for us to say we're going to go to a station legal ID, and then Town Hall News presented by SRN Network, and we'll be right back.
Broadcasting live from the Taunton Federal Credit Union studios at 14 Church Green, we are AM 1530, WVBF Middleborough Taunton, and W259DD Middleborough Center, 99.7 FM, your hometown radio station.